All right. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be doing a Apex Legends composition tier list. So we've played the game for about a week now. I'd say individually we each have somewhere around 50, 60 hours in the game.
Yeah, I would say about that.
Yeah, we both played it for 24 hours straight a couple days ago. We were both sitting just around level 40 in game, if that gives you an idea. So this is going to be like an early tier list, which means we're not going to have all of the possible compositions, right? We're just going to be talking about the ones that we've seen a lot of and the ones that we've theory crafted about. And if so, if we missed a composition that you think is particularly viable, let us know. And when we update the video, we'll probably include that when we have a little bit more information. We've seen a bit more of the game. That being said, is there any you want to start with?
Are we starting off here with the competition tier list?
I mean, this is just kind of what we think is the most viable win strategies. Yeah, so you could say competitive tier list. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off whatever I think S tier is gonna have a lifeline in it.
Yeah. So we'll rock a lifeline somewhere in this S tier composition. If we want to talk about what we think is like probably our top two compositions, we just start there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a lifeline, you're really just sacrificing, like, not only just the chance to get those legendary weapons, but just like all around getting better armor for your team is almost guaranteed. So like, you're kind of just like sacrificing.
Yeah. I mean, like,
advantages.
I'd have to say, like, Lifeline is probably, in my opinion, the best character in the game. I mean, the ult is incredibly valuable. The drop pod, the value you get out of the resources, can be extreme, especially if you're feeding your Lifeline ultimate accelerators, so you're getting that ult 3, 4, 5 times in a match.
Yeah.
It can become extremely valuable in making sure that your team doesn't have to suffer through the RNG of whatever place you loot. It really helps, pad those. And then the passive of being able to res people faster, having a barrier while resing people, the heal bot is honestly, in my opinion, I think it's her worst ability, easily, and it's still good, right? And that's why I think Lifeline is such a crucial component. I know for me at least, I play mostly Lifeline. When I don't play Lifeline, I feel the impact of not having a healer in the squad on my resources of having those syringes and those med packs and those Phoenix kits, being able to like bunker up behind a hole and reset with a heal bot is really valuable. And then, she can even use her healing items 25% faster. That's part of her kit. So I think that's incredibly valuable.
It really is.
Yeah. So if we're going to move into the next person in this composition, who are we thinking?
I want to start off with what we think to be sort of the cookie cutter basic. Anybody should be able to run this comp, which would be getting a Gibraltar in there.
Yeah.
And then probably a Bloodhound as well.
Definitely. So this is kind of what we've been calling the God Squad. It's just been incredibly effective for us in practice. I'll have to fix the sizing on some of these tokens next time. So we already talked in depth about why we think Lifeline is important here. That's kind of be your backline, your support, what's kind of like pushing this through. So let's talk about a little bit why we think Gibraltar.
Well, the Gibraltar ability itself kind of just like, it obviously acts as like a barrier, but you can use it just kind of like to move around or get yourself like from one place to another really easily. It also like allows for easy res times. If you are playing a long engagement but you don't have a lot of cover, it's easy reses, easy place to kind of start popping your abilities, and you can see if they're coming and pushing you. So it gives you the knowledge like that you would have from actually being in the fight with the safety of being behind cover and being able to actually pop those heals and shields.
Yeah, definitely. With Gibraltar's shield, you can, if you've played him, you obviously know you can throw out the shield pack a pretty decent distance. So if you need to cover a gap, right, you can use it as a cover there. And like you said, resetting in the middle of a fight, you're in the open field, somebody gets the first couple of shots, you guys lose all your armor, your Gibraltar throws down a shield, your Lifeline throws down a heal bot, everyone starts pumping those those shield cells. And first of all, that's value from Lifeline because now you don't have to waste the extra time and resources to use your syringes and your med packs. You can just spend time doing that. And secondly, with the Gibraltar shield there's nothing they can do to stop you other than push you. And if you know that that's a part of your playstyle, then one or two people in your squad is rocking a Peacekeeper in the back pocket. If they try and push you, they're just going to get shotgun blasted. Or a Mastiff if you're lucky. But yeah, so Gibraltar, extremely valuable. His ultimate too. Yeah, we didn't talk about his ultimate.
I was waiting for that one actually. So as we get to his ultimate, this is something that you'll find really useful, like in general battles. Either if there's like a few squads, everyone's in the open, or you just need you need to push them out so you can just gun them down. However, his ultimate is the most valuable at the end of the game. More often than not, you'll find at the last circle, which is kind of in the open, not with a lot of overhead cover. There might be some like rocks and some other cover nearby. But if you can control whatever overhead cover, will that be a building or an overhang that exist inside of one of those final circles, that Gibraltar ult can just absolutely devastate an enemy team. I've seen, actually, it was me and two other of my teammates. Me and someone else went down, and it was up to just our Gibraltar who was up and alive. And as they were pushing me, because I was out of position, because I fell off the cliff as I got hit by a nade. He threw his ult onto them and took out all three to win the game because there was such a small area in the circle that they just can't get away from it. It just covers so much area. It does so much devastating damage. It's just that crucial to have it in that last fight.
Yeah, it's a super strong late game ability, and you can use it for more than just damage potential. It zones out an entire area of the map. I mean, if you're funneling into a choke and there's another team on you guys and the storm's chasing you guys, you can basically force them to either take storm damage or run through the Gibraltar ult. And either way, you're probably going to knock at least one of them, right?
At least one, usually two.
And at that point, you can flip around and lay down some fire as you're backing away from the storm and almost guarantee a squad wipe that way, or if for some reason you do get caught out and you have to use that bubble shield to reset before you engage the fight, and you don't have any way of killing them if they rush you, you haven't found your Peacekeepers or whatever, or you see them rushing you and you just feel like you need that extra time, you can throw the Gibraltar ult on the ground near you and rain the meteor strike, whatever his ult is, around you to prevent them from really pushing in. So pretty versatile, very useful.
Very useful.
And then we have Bloodhound.
A lot of people don't take into consideration the Bloodhound's abilities. So if you play it right and you play it smart, like especially if you're in urban areas, as a Bloodhound, you gotta play a little more intelligent. You gotta be kind of like the front line while also not being obvious. So if you're around a corner, you can scan like a whole house. If you're underneath it, or if you're in a weird spot no one can see, you can really get this information out with his regular ability. He's who I main a lot, and I often find myself like hiding in areas most people wouldn't think, just to kind of see if there's anybody in the area, or if I pop my ult, instead of running right at them, like using it in the middle of a battle. Sometimes I'll use it before a battle to help track a little better if we actually are tracking, because he is a hunter. If you actually use him like a hunter, you'll find yourself getting a lot more kills that way. But I use this often to try to flank around even in the middle of the battle, just for that speed boost. And I'll get around and I'll have this innate built-in threat detector or tracker, I guess you could say, like when you're scoping, no matter what scope you're using or sight you're using. And it just makes it really easy just to hit your shots, especially if you're using something that has devastating damage, like a wingman.
Yeah, for sure. I think some people just don't know how I feel about him. I think a lot of people undervalue him. His ability to see footprints, not only can that allow you to chase teams down, but it can also act as an early warning system. If you know you're about to run up on a team, maybe you'll approach the house differently. If you come up and your Bloodhound's like, hey, there are footprints here 10 seconds ago, they're probably in that house, right? That allows you and your squad to approach that scenario completely differently. Information is so important in competitive gaming across the board. I mean, that's why in MOBAs, wards are super important, or in your FPS games, having good communication between your teammates and knowing where everyone is on the other team is super important. All that stuff is extremely important. And having a hero who's entirely based around finding that information out is incredibly potent. And then, you guys want something? Go
yeah, so like basically, like as Gibraltar's really, his ult is really heavy in that late game. Bloodhound is basically getting you through the entire mini game with his abilities, and when you combine it with Lifelines, just their ult, their Lifelines ult, if you can get a Mastiff on a Bloodhound, you're just dealing with a super fast, can see through anything, someone with a Mastiff, and that is almost unstoppable on his own. He's basically the best solo character you can have. If you're a DPS main in other games like Overwatch or TF2 or other hero-based shooters like that, you're going to want to gravitate towards the Bloodhound or someone else of that sort who can really just kind of move around and just cause a lot of density damage by themselves.
Definitely, I would agree. So yeah, I think this kind of rounds out our general ideas on this composition right here. Definitely being one of the, I would say, only two that I can think of S tier compositions. So
I do want to point out as we move into the next tier list or the next team, the Bloodhound itself is actually a direct counter to the Bangalore, and her ability, because he can see through all of her smoke with his ult. So she can't even see through it, but he can. So honestly, her throwing down a smoke when there's a Bloodhound around with an ult, which by the way charges fast, is just like, it's great for you if you're playing the Bloodhound. It's really, really convenient, because if anything, they're just giving you more ability, because now you can just stand in the open and just take shots at people, which is why the Bloodhound is also very good to combine with a Bangalore if you have one on your team. It's not the worst duo to have.
Yeah, which is kind of where we're moving next.
Which is where we're moving to next, yeah.
So you'll notice the next composition is going to be very, very similar. We're just going to be grabbing Lifeline again, and we're going to grab a Bloodhound again. But this time, we're subbing out the Gibraltar for a Bangalore. Bangalore. There, that's the one.
And as I also mentioned, like you can see through the smoke, I want to point out something I thought of the other day. You can actually use a Caustic also in place of the Bangalore.
Yeah.
If you set up those Caustic just shots around in general, like his abilities, you can shoot them and activate them, and they still act as smoke, even if they're not in it, and your Bloodhound can still see through them.
Yeah, it's definitely less thick. You know, it's a little bit easier to kind of make out things that are on the fringes of the caustic gas, and
yes.
His ultimate creates a gas cloud, but it's not nearly as large as the Bangalore smoke screen. So it's not going to be as dense of cover, but it is going to be a lot of disruption for your opponent's team, and their vision is still going to be obscured, right? So it's still going to be a little bit harder for them to hit those shots. And
the Bloodhound can really use that to his advantage, because with his movement ability as well, when he has that buff, he kind of doesn't really take the movement loss as hard as everybody else does in his own team Caustic abilities. So it kind of just, again, acts as if kind of his cover, not as he said, not as thick as Bangalore's,
but the nice part about Caustic in this substitution as well is kind of works in the Gibraltar sense of being able to help put pressure against rushes. He can throw traps down pretty quickly. I've played a fair amount of Caustic at this point. He's my second most played character. And whenever I hear me and my squad mates taking damage, we all need to pop Phoenix kits or whatever. I'm just, before I pop my kit, I'll throw probably 2 traps down around corners where I think they might push, and then I'll duck behind the trap and I'll start popping my Phoenix kit. And if they push, more often than not, they'll trigger the trap, and either they'll panic and back off, or it'll be harder for them to see you and hit you, and you might be able to finish that, and then you'll have the advantage. And because Caustic's passive lets him have threat vision for people that are inside his gas, it makes it a lot easier to kind of win that, more like level out that playing field when you're at a disadvantage and being pressured. So I would say Caustic is almost the more defensive version of running the Bangalore in this composition, if you guys find yourself as a team or your playstyle is a little less aggressive. But Bangalore's smoke covers such a wide area and is so dense that if your Bloodhound has his ultimate, it really is a potent combination. And I'm sure a lot of people have figured that out already, but it's pretty strong. And another thing too is in that smoke, if Bloodhound happens to go in, maybe you've got a Peacekeeper or something, if he uses his tactical as Q, that still gives the rest of his teammates an idea of how many enemies are in the smoke, their general positioning, so they can start lobbing grenades or throwing thermites behind them. Kind of putting in that assistance. And they may not have a perfect idea of where they are, but it can definitely help.
Yeah, using this comp is going to lead you to be a little more aggressive and picking your fights a little more close range in a way that you're going to want to be able to actually use that Bangalore ability in general. So as opposed to the Gibraltar one where you're going to want to keep your distance slightly more, or at least you're able to, this is going to be one where you're definitely going to be way more close range and also like coming back on people, flanking with the Caustic knowledge that you gain from his abilities and stuff, from his traps.
All right, I think that wraps it up for all of our S tier compositions.
I think it does. I think I'm ready to move into the A+ area.
The A+ kind of area. So, you have anything off the top of your head that you want to throw into A+?
it's hard. I do think honestly, any composition running a lifeline usually is not bad.
Yeah.
It's usually really really solid. So, but then again, anything with a lifeline is going to be in this top area.
Yeah.
Unless you're really running like running a lifeline, a pathfinder, and a mirage, that's going to be kind of garbage tier in the way that like they just don't work together. No one there really like operates well with each other. They just don't play well together.
So we'll go ahead and just say that from here on out, we're just not going to include compositions that revolve around lifeline. Maybe we'll find 2 legend/hero combos that work really well, and you're like, well, what's the third here? Well, it never hurts to throw in a lifeline.
Exactly.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and pick 2 out. And maybe not A tier, but we'll just talk about this composition next. Maybe I think that the combination of Pathfinder and Caustic is actually pretty strong.
I can agree, but you want to expand on that?
Yeah. So part of Caustic's kit is being able to set up all of those traps and really find an area to bunker down and defend well. So what Pathfinder does with this passive, if you're able to have a good idea of where the relay beacons are, you're really able to keep your whole squad 1 movement ahead of the rest of the people playing. And when you get down to those final circles, you're already there. You're probably already set up, right? And plus, if for whatever reason your prepared position gets pushed and you don't think you can hold it anymore, your Pathfinder can just toss a zipline somewhere, and you guys can just skedaddle right out of there. And them being slowed, hopefully, by the caustic gas means they're going to be a little bit slower on the chase. They're going to be obscured in their vision of shooting at you while you're riding the zip line. So I definitely think that it's a composition that does pretty well.
I think you'd be absolutely right. I think people are still learning how to play Pathfinder, and that's why a lot of people undervalue him in some cases. But I also think the fact that people don't understand how he works, and some people get surprised by it, or why he's also overvalued on some tier lists that you might see by like some high level players who are pro players, or they just play, or they're streamers. They play a lot. They understand how games work. So when they see a character like that that's undervalued, they think, how can I exploit this undervalued character to surprise people? And they'll do that, and they'll start using it like, oh, well, now they're S2, now they're the best character in the game, but they're not. It's just people haven't learned how to handle it because it's all new to them, and it's a surprise. This game's only been out for about a week. So again, it's going to be a lot of once someone learns a new way to play a character, it's going to surprise a lot of teams.
So would you say this would be like an A+ or an A tier composition?
I would call it an A.
Yeah, I'm thinking an A composition as well.
I don't think anything innately gives it too much of an advantage in most fights. It's mostly just your positioning and how you're going to handle it.
So we'll drag it with Pathfinder, Caustic, and we should throw one more person in there. Who do you think else is good in that kind of prepared position? You could probably use a Gibraltar.
I was thinking of Gibraltar.
You could also maybe use a Wraith for additional team movement if you really need it. Though I don't think that's the best possible option. Mirage isn't bad. You can kind of use Mirage as decoy to maybe bait people into caustic traps or...
I think the Mirage might be a good call here. I would say, honestly, like, try the Mirage, see how it goes, but you're going to have someone who knows what they're doing and listen to, like, team advice, like, hey, throw it out of that door, we're going to take the zip line out the back, and by the time that, they realize it's a Mirage, we should already be halfway on the zip or something. But in general, I think if this is for lower tier players, I would stick closer to Gibraltar in general, because he's going to just be a little easier to stay alive with. And in this game, just staying up and weapons reloaded is your biggest advantage.
Yeah.
So.
And if you have the information, right, that they're coming around the corner towards a caustic trap, your Gibraltar with that arm shield that he has can really kind of hold down that choke point or wherever that they're going to come around and get popped by the trap, kind of panic a little bit. Maybe they fire wildly, but having that shield up front can definitely be handy. And of course, throwing a lifeline into this composition,
always good.
Never going to be a bad thing, right? But we'll go ahead and we'll just call this one with Gibraltar. Let's see. Let's say, can we we'll overlap these two slightly.
Okay.
That'll be it could be either of those. Okay, we'll come up with a better system for next time.
We will. That'll be good for now. That'll
do it for that one. Is there any other compositions that kind of, let's see, it's now to the point of theory crafting. I've definitely run some one-off games that have kind of run into weird compositions, but planned compositions haven't stretched too far outside of these three main ones.
The A1 I haven't seen a crazy amount of, but I really do enjoy it when we do play it or we do come against against it, even when obviously it's really frustrating to go up against. But if you use this well enough and you actually understand how the game works and how zones work and how to like hack the with the Pathfinder and find out where the circles are being, get there fast enough, you can really start doing some heavy damage, as we already stated. So not one you'll see a lot, at least not early on, and not at there's no ranks, but not at the whatever, if they do levels, not at the low level, but something that you might see later on, maybe like from teams that form in this game, or from just players who are playing with their friends a lot who just make pseudo teams or whatever. You'll see it a lot. So as we move into kind of like the more experimental ones, the ones that you run across to matchmaking a lot, let's go over the one that you'll see matchmaking a lot. So like the one that you kind of can't avoid most of the time if you're solo queuing. So we're talking your Bangalore, your Wraith, and your Bloodhound, or even Mirage if they have it. The Bloodhound and Mirage honestly are interchangeable as far as how often they're picked, but you'll always see a Bangalore and a Wraith usually. Personally, I think Wraith is very overplayed. I think that she has her uses and her situational utility, but honestly, is not something you're going to want to see, especially in a comp like this. It's just completely not useful. Yeah, she can help her team get away, but they're getting away because they can't win their fights. That's why.
Yeah, I definitely think Wraith is overvalued. I don't think in any way that she's a bad character, but really, I definitely think she's overvalued. But this is definitely going to be a common, matchmaking. A lot of people want to be that hero, make those plays, get those aggressive kind of pushes, and these are the heroes that best enable that. Now, the reason Mirage isn't in here is because this game is still only a week old, and there are a lot of the casual to mid-tier players that haven't put in the time yet to unlock Mirage, or maybe they did and they picked Caustic instead, though then they're probably not one of these people.
Probably not one of the people who are auto-picking DPS role.
Right. Yeah, this is going to be something you run into a lot. I know that we've ran into it a lot.
As a Bloodhound main, honestly, I run into this usually every game. If I get a Gibraltar or a Lifeline, I'm usually shocked and surprised, and we end up winning the round usually.
Yeah.
When I run into this squad, it is an uphill battle the entire time.
Certainly. And I'm a Lifeline main, right? So I run into this a lot less. But having been doing other things and seeing him play, I definitely see frequently when he's a Bloodhound main that you run into compositions very similar to this. People just pick the characters they think are going to be the most aggressive. Sometimes you'll see a Pathfinder kind of sub into this mix because his kit can be played pretty aggressively. If you really learn how to swing well with his grapple, he can make some rapid position changes, which allow for some interesting plays. But so this is going to be probably your matchmaking composition. I'm going to go ahead and probably call this a B tier composition.
Honestly, a C tier.
C tier? You think C tier? I kind of agree, honestly.
I don't think they stand well enough on their own. I think the Bangalore and the Bloodhound have a great duo, but when you throw in the Wraith, there's no survivability for either of those heroes to actually operate, or there's no even space makers for them to kind of do what they need to do. Bangalore does make space, but only just so much. And when you have a Wraith running around, just like not even really being a distraction, but being someone who usually just gets taken out very quickly, it's not very helpful.
Yeah, and of course, like if your team play and your coordination is good enough, this composition will work because
you can aggro everybody, but
right.
You also have to be positioned well. You can't just be running in the open often. You can't be going from large city to large city without thinking about where the enemies are going to be.
And to some extent, I do think that if your Bloodhound and your Bangalore can work together well, smokes are being popped frequently during engagements where it's applicable and the ult pops off, and your Bloodhound is a good player, then this composition can certainly feel like it works well, but I really think you have a weak link with the Wraith pick in this sort of environment. And replacing that Wraith with almost any other person in the list, even a Pathfinder, if they play appropriately to kind of support the team and maybe use their zip lines to go on flanks and put pressure from other angles. Pathfinder isn't the worst here, but outside of Mirage, Wraith, and Pathfinder, you pick anyone else from the roster that's left. Well, that's Gibraltar, Lifeline, Caustic. All of them are going to make this composition 10 times better than it is like this.
When you have this comp and you pick a Pathfinder who can also sub in for it, as we said, and if you know what you're doing, you can play well. That Pathfinder, this is kind of a warning to all new players. If you're going to play your Pathfinder, obviously you're going to have to play him in the beginning to get to know them, so like you're going to struggle in the beginning, but try to watch a video or two on someone playing Pathfinder, or at least look at and try to understand his abilities. Know that you can swing. Figure out how his you can traverse with more than just distance. You can also get height with his ult and everything, and how fast it charges. Try to understand all that when you're playing Pathfinder. Otherwise, you're going to struggle a lot. Your team's not going to enjoy being with you or your pick. I know a lot of low-level players like playing Pathfinder for some reason. I haven't quite figured out what the appeal is. I debate just because it's a smiley robot who says really weird things. And that's totally fine. Just try to understand how he works a little bit better, and don't play him like you would just play a Bloodhound or a Caustic, because he's not those people.
Yeah, he's not a runner and gunner. He definitely rewards smart positioning and good game sense. So I would say, honestly, that Pathfinder has a surprisingly high skill floor to play well.
So he plays a lot like a Wraith, but just a lot more complicated.
Yeah, and with that, complexity, it comes the reward of he's a little bit harder to follow. So if you hit a good grapple, and you swing well and you get to a good position, it's a lot harder to follow you than if a Wraith is in her. I don't even know what the ability is called. Her Wraith form. If she's using her tactical, it's a lot easier to follow that, right? It leaves a trail behind.
And it's 2-dimensional. She can't go up.
Yeah, and you can't. There's no verticality to it. I've definitely seen Pathfinders pull off some amazing plays by using height to their advantage and their ability to traverse upward quicker than any other character in the game.
If you guys are corner hopping with another team, going back and forth the corner, you can always use a Pathfinder to shoot that corner with his grapple, swing around up and behind them, and even if they catch you, they have to go look at you. All three are going to have their focus pull. Your other two members can come around and just lay the damage down. So doing things like that, even if you get taken out, is giving your team the room that they need to go just be aggressive and operate, which is, again, why it would work with the Bangalore and Bloodhound, but you have to be operating as that squad and understand what everybody can do and what they will do in situations.
Yeah, definitely. Pressure is a big thing in this game, and being able to put pressure in from two different angles can really panic and overwhelm a team. So unless they have something like a Gibraltar to really be their rock to reset in a situation like that, I think you'll find yourself coming out on top in a lot of dogfights using that kind of thing. But we've already strayed away from this composition. So was there any other, you think, common compositions that we've come across so far that are worth highlighting?
I'm trying to look. There's not any that I think I get picked a ton. The Bangalore Wraith combo gets picked a lot, which honestly, just stop, please. It's terrible. They don't work together. Even if you have a good third, they make each other both. The third might make one viable or the other more viable, or at least help keep the team more grounded. But together, they're just not dynamic together. And that's the whole thing about this game. Is, you're picking heroes for yourself, but you gotta pick heroes if you would in an Overwatch game, not like a tank and a healer and a damage kind of thing, but people who can complement each other with their abilities. So, in general, try to think about that more when you're picking.
So I'm gonna use the Bangalore Bloodhound Pathfinder as almost a placeholder for anything that replaces Wraith in this composition.
Yeah.
Just to make my point that
and it makes it so much better.
This just becomes a lot stronger.
Your Bangalore Wraith combo is trash.
It's honestly one of the least synergistic combinations.
They don't work together. They don't do anything together.
If I'm being honest, and this is something we'll probably talk about when we do our individual legend or hero tier list, I think Wraith's abilities don't synergize particularly amazingly with anybody. Mm-hmm. They're kind of a self-sustaining thing. Now, of course, her ultimate can be used to travel the team effectively with good flanks. You guys can move around rapidly with good communication. She's not a bad team character. I just don't think anything in her kit particularly synergizes amazingly with anybody else's.
No, she doesn't have any synergy with any abilities or ults or anything like that. Her ult can be very useful in team fights. I agree 100%. It's something that I've seen before, I've been taken out by before. I've seen a lot of good people get taken out by a really, really well-placed and well-used Wraith ult. But that's by coordinated teams who know what they're doing, and the Wraith knows where to put them, when to do it, and not push too early, not do it too late. It's a lot about knowledge. And yes, you'll gain that by playing Wraith a lot, but if you're playing Wraith with a Bangalore and Bloodhound, you're not going to learn how to play Wraith because you're just going to die every time.
I think that pretty much wraps it up for our initial week 1 composition tier list.
Nothing you think for the A+ category?
Nothing really stands out to me as a cut above A, but a cut below A+. And I think that might partially be because if there's an A+ composition that doesn't run Lifeline, you can just toss Lifeline in replacement of almost in any almost composition, and it immediately becomes an S tier composition. Even if we did a thought experiment, right? So let's say we take, who can we take out of one of the S, or who can we swap in for a Lifeline from one of the S tier compositions to knock it down to maybe an A+ composition?
Maybe if you put a Mirage instead of a Lifeline in that first one. In the
Yeah,
Cookie Cutter
I was
one,
thinking maybe a Mirage or maybe like a Caustic in place.
A Bangalore would be really good.
Well,
Do we already have
Bangalore
that?
runs into. Oh no, I guess it wouldn't be the same. A Bangalore would work
A
well.
Bangalore would work really well with the Gibraltar Bloodhound combo because again the Gibraltar gives you space to stay alive and to move, and so does the Gibraltar and the Bangalore work well together because they're both space makers, and when you have two space makers for a Bloodhound, that just really starts to work really well for him, and he can operate at an amazingly high level. If you get someone who just knows what they're doing with their gun and with that keyboard and mouse, they can just absolutely devastate teams.
Certainly, and I'm gonna put this in A plus for now. But honestly, I think we haven't really had a good enough time to test out this kind of composition. In fact, I think this is the first time we've really thought of this one. It might be able to eke its way into S, maybe.
It depends on how skilled your Bangalore and your Bloodhound are with their gun.
Yeah, and again, the big problem with this, which isn't too bad in Apex, but you really lose that RNG equalizer here. It doesn't happen often, but there are games where you just get poor loot. It's just bad. And of course, knowing where to drop and how to read the map and avoid, the conflicts that are necessary and all that stuff can lead you to usually getting good loot, but sometimes it just doesn't. And in those situations, those lifeline ultimates, those care packages can really make the difference. So that is definitely a place where that weakness comes in. But this is a pretty aggressive composition with a defensive element having that Gibraltar Bubble Shield. You can't reset quite as effectively.
I'd say it's less about resets. It's
Yeah.
more about securing the kills when they're down.
Right. So it has synergy, pretty good synergy.
I would say in this kind of ult, in this kind of game, don't be afraid to throw that Bangalore ability on them when they have a down player and send in your Bloodhound with his ult. Don't be afraid to do that, because when you do that, you send maybe the Gibraltar and the Bangalore around the other side. Like they go left, and you have your Bloodhound go right. Your Bloodhound will be able to start taking out the people who are rezzing, and the focus will get turned onto him, and then you guys can just kind of push into the smoke without being seen, so you won't get caught out as smoke is really hard to see through, and you'll both see it at the same time. This way, they'll be turned around, focused on your Bloodhound, and you can kind of get them from behind. So this time, the Bloodhound would actually be the opposite of the flanker, which is usually what he is in most roles. So thinking about how to use them in these kind of ways, just like together, is how you're gonna end up winning these games. Because people think, how can I be the best Gibraltar? How can I be the best Bangalore? How can I be the best Mirage, Wraith, whatever? It's about how can my team operate the best together.
Definitely, yeah. It's in any ability-based, hero-based game, team synergy and coordination becomes the most important. And understanding different ways to use your abilities to that end is what sets players a cut above the rest more often than not. So yeah, but I think that really does wrap up our composition week 1 tier list. Yeah, like I said before, if you guys have any compositions that you think are crazy good or crazy bad that we didn't include on this list or talk about, let us know. And we'll be updating this tier list at some point down the road as compositions kind of become a little more clear. We've had a little more time to kind of play test around with some of these ideas. So thank you guys very much.